Hi Capricorn, this is Raina, and this is a video of 3 things that Capricorns should know in 2021. And it might be slightly misleading because I'm trying to think here. I would say in one way or another, all 3 of these they have already been in play for you in 2020. But it still bears repeating. And also, I don't always talk about some of these things. So being aware of what the transits are can be helpful as well, because it can allow you to see how it's actually manifesting in your life. When you're kind of like just kind of going through life on automatic, it makes it more difficult to take advantage of things because it's almost like fumbling in the dark. So it kind of affirms any desires that you have, for instance, at this particular juncture in your life. I mean, that's the best way I can think of putting it. Okay. So number 1 is that there is a party in your second house of earned income. And some of you know that Jupiter and Saturn went into Aquarius in late December of 2020. And that was, example, which is, that's almost 2021, let's face it. So it's really something that is more the case for 2021, how it influences you. Now, Jupiter is going to go briefly into Pisces mid-year and then go in for good at the end of the year. So Jupiter will be in this second house all year long, which is really good for expansion of finances. But Saturn, your ruler, will continue into 2022. And in addition to that, as I record this in February, there's all kinds of other stuff happening. There's a Mercury retrograde in the second house. There's Venus, and there's going to be a new moon here in a couple of days as I record this, just a bunch of stuff. And so this means that this area is really featured for you. It's an earth house, like you being the ruler of the 10th house, and you're an earth sign, so that's an earth house. So it's an area that you vibe with in a very natural kind of a way. It's like when people come into this lifetime and they happen to be born as Capricorns, they're just naturally imbued with the ability to handle material energy in a particularly good way. And this is, it's almost like a genetic thing or something, but it's coming from that astrological influence. And so even though Taurus is not your sign, it still is going to have that same kind of theme of material energy, because it's the house of your earned income and your possessions. So this can be an area that you shine in, and having all these planets here just adds to that. And even though it's actually in the sign of Aquarius, it still is a compatible energy for you in terms of the house that it's in. The other thing that's interesting about this is that in the summertime, well, I'll just say July and August, we're going to have a full moon in Aquarius and then a blue moon in August. So August 22nd is a blue moon. That's the second new moon in a month. The first one is at 1 degree of Capricorn, Aquarius on July 23rd, and then a month later on August 22nd at 29 degrees of Aquarius. And full moons can bring things to completion. But there's an extra like punctuation mark when you have a blue moon. And that expression, once in a blue moon, kind of gives this rare type of feel to it. So in this second house of earned income, there's something about that Aquarian energy. I mean, just in general for all of us to have these blue moons as well, that can feel like something is definitely going to happen. And, bringing things to fruition is very fertile energy for any kind of material pursuits. The second house is also about your self-esteem. And I always joke about your self-worth versus your net worth. And so that can be heightened as well because of whatever else is going on in your life. Perhaps if you've been working on something, it finally starts to take off. Actually, I can think of a Capricorn person. I'm trying to characterize Capricorn. Are you patient people? I would say overall, yes. I do believe that Capricorns tend to be cautious and they tend not to take risks. But I do think that you are cardinal signs, so you really try to take action to make things happen. And sometimes that can translate into being rather impatient to make things happen. But more so your fellow cardinal sign Aries than I would say Capricorn, because Aries is ruled by Mars, and that kind of sense of urgency I think is more present with Aries. So an example, I'm going to talk about the second thing because I think that this could connect with, those double full moons in this house. And that is, the second thing I put down is Uranus and Taurus. And that is in a fellow Earth sign. Now, Uranus has been in Taurus, I believe, since 2018-ish. Because these planets retrograde, they can go back into the prior sign as Uranus did in Aries. And it gets a little bit hazy because then I'm trying to think, okay, when did they go back for good? Last couple of years. And I believe in 2021, it's not getting any higher than 14 degrees of Uranus. So it still is only about halfway through its transit. And so it's probably been about 3 years that's been in Taurus. And this is in the fifth house of creativity and love and the business that you own. So Uranus can be about technology. And in the fifth house, this can be about starting a business that is primarily online. And perhaps this is something that you started a few years ago when Uranus went into this house, and maybe this is going to be the year that it finally gels. When people are not so impatient about a business that they've started, especially if they are doing more than one thing and maybe they're not putting their full attention on it, or just because of other factors, like, for instance, the state of the world, what's going on in the greater collective that might be influencing the economy and all these other factors, just influencing practically everything we do, and they just stick with it. It might be delayed, but they can have that fruition come to them. So if that is something that you have been investing time in, maybe you have a day job and you have this little side hustle or business, maybe this is going to be your year, Capricorn. Definitely with the second house trigger of income, that could certainly suggest, other income streams, Jupiter there. So just kind of like putting it out there. And it could be due to technology, but also when you least expect it, like it just taking off, viral, going, there's an unpredictable quality about Uranus that can make it come when you least expect it. But same thing can apply to love. Now, if you have gotten divorced in the past few years, or, definitely this could be something that has happened for some Capricorns because you've had eclipses in your sign and Cancer. And that was something that I was kind of wanting to put down. I'll just mention that in passing, is that last year you had eclipses still in your sign in Capricorn and Cancer, and that could have lent your life more instability because the eclipses can be change agents. And the seventh house of committed partnership was affected. So that may have, led to the parting of ways in the last few years of some Capricorns with their partner. And also because you have Pluto in your sign, and same Saturn was recently in your sign. So you may have been under the gun in certain ways yourself with your own self-growth, Capricorn, and that has led you to make some positive changes in your life. And that can, and also with Pluto, sometimes it's even psychotherapy or some other type of healing modality, but Pluto can have that psychological analysis component to it. And that can lead sometimes the person to see that their primary relationship is toxic or just otherwise not working. So you may just be reveling in being a free agent, but love can come when you least expect it as well. So just, putting it out there. You may also attract an Aquarius person during this time, next few years, or a bohemian type of individual, somebody who is very, very much a free spirit. I think of Janis Joplin, who was technically a Capricorn and definitely a free spirit type of person, although she had her, what I would call Capricornian tendencies to manage her money, to really track her money and be concerned about that. She had the moon in Cancer, so that might have been that influence. And her sun was like probably one of the last degrees of Capricorn too. So she was on the cusp of Aquarius, and her rising sign was Aquarius. So she was definitely influenced by the Aquarian ideals, but she had that, and she had that free-spirited nature. The way she looked was very Aquarian, but she had her definitely had that other side to her as well. And the reason I was bringing her up is that you could meet somebody who's an earth sign like you who has a free spirit. So I don't want to just make it like, it's probably going to be an Aquarius or a Sagittarian or someone like that. But you can meet somebody like that. And it could be opposites attracting, perhaps. Maybe you're a little bit offbeat yourself and have a lot of Aquarian inner planets, and you vibe with that. Either way, it's all good, because even if you're a very buttoned up, straight-laced type of Capricorn individual, you may be attracted to somebody who has that type of demeanor, especially since some of you may have Venus in Aquarius. And that's the kind of person, or Mars in Aquarius, and that's the type of person you're attracted to. Okay, and the third thing is that Chiron in Aries is your fourth house of home and family. Now, Chiron, this is a transient Chiron. This does square off to you, and in some cases can be something that forces you to have to, deal with an obstacle that relates to the home front. And this is going to be emotional, not only because the fourth house is a water house, but because Chiron is is pain, trauma, and that sort of thing. But it's also healing. And so if you can bear any pushback that you deal with your family of origin, for instance, you may make a great breakthrough, have a great psychological breakthrough, Capricorn, that can really deal with your childhood and things that you experienced and be able to triumph over it. Even though squares are challenging angles, they can force somebody's hand because they are irritating to the point of, causing the person to just feel like they have to deal with it. That friction can actually ultimately lead to spur the person on to really doing something about it. So ultimately it can be for the good. Also, just the fact that it's in that fourth house, I think can be, for some people, if you have some kind of business, Capricorn, that involves the healing arts, maybe you're going to do it from your home or make your, home base the place where you're treating people, or the place where you are, you have your office. And that can be really good. Maybe that cuts down on your expenses. It makes you feel like you don't have to get out of your pajamas, if you even wear pajamas, but I mean, you can just wear whatever you want, and it makes you feel much more, you don't have a commute, and so maybe that adds more time to your day for other things that you want to pursue. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. If you would like me to look at 2021 in even greater detail, a natal chart interpretation, a combination thereof, whatever, please click on the link below. I have all kinds of readings. Take care. Bye.